Okay, it looks like it's recording, so I'm going to continue. June 23rd, Monday. The original project was document my transformation and actually go through lessons and guide, people through it with fucking all sorts of life experience and things that I had. That was supposed to start 3.5 years ago, and I didn't because of everything that everybody faces in my situation. So probably, now that I understand myself a little bit more, in my disposition and my experience, a little bit more complicated than most people on the fucking planet. This is now where I am, and I'm going to do this quick video just to catch up on where I am to relative, where I'm going to be, let's say, in 5 years. I'm purging. I got so many things on the shelves that I just kept stacking, hoping to recycle back to them one day and finish reading them and start applying them. But I think the attitude of bottom up realignment is that I have to put a lot of effort into myself to get my physical healthy, so that my psychology and my emotions could start getting regulated, so I could finally approach like something like God or divine intervention. And I'm gonna flip that shit upside down, because that has been my old problem. And if I'm gonna cause a quantum shift, then I have to do everything different, including my approach. So it's gonna be top down, because realigning with God and understanding, and the first question always is, and I'll give you a quick test whether you believe in God or not, but basically if at any point in your life you constantly, as a default, even if you don't believe in God, but you're always blaming an outside source outside of this earth source, like it's God's fault, or you're constantly arguing with God that you don't believe in, then chances are you have to believe in God, or otherwise you're like that fucking homeless bum next to the light post on the corner of the street, cursing at God, the invisible thing he doesn't see, and we call him, well, he's crazy because he's talking to himself. And that's exactly what it is. Somebody who's talking to themselves is crazy. So if you are talking to yourself in your head and there is no God that exists, well, you're certifiable, flat out. You're just not doing it out loud, and you still have some cognitive function to process life with and fucking go to work and do some shit, like monkeys that we've been trained. But if you, not understanding the connection that you have, but are still sort of innately cursing at God, then you understand that somehow inside you there's a deeper yearning for something that really does exist out there. We just don't know how to connect to it because we were not trained properly, and we were diluted with so many other shit that we actually avoid the search for training properly. And that's kind of the basics of it. So going top down is just kind of understanding, like, look, God exists, flat out. Either just as an idea on this earth that humans generated, that there is something like God, even when there isn't, but it exists as a source of a folder, and we have all these ideas and descriptions that we put into that folder, like, okay, here is what God is according to everybody that's ever lived on this planet, and we try to approach it with some kind of reverence to think that, okay, well, everybody says that God exists, let me open up the folder and see what it says about me, how I could approach it, or how I could use the power of God in my life, or make affect his sort of perceived energy so that my shit gets better in life. So at that level, God exists. Now, does the real God exist, like an actual God that actually cares for humanity and has a plan, and like some kind of divine fucking bullshit that, free will and come and create and build, and all these things that we think we know about God? But is there an actual being out there that has this supposed power that we could connect into, that has actual fucking significant effect in our life? Cause and effect, right? That's the basics of life. There's a fucking motion that signifies everything. There has to be space for cause and effect, and time, and but there's an agent. There's something that describes the type of effect that once this thing interacts with the cause, it creates what the outcome is. And in other words, if God really exists, and I'm going to latch onto this idea that he does, then in 5 years I'm going to have an effect on my life that's much greater or supernaturally more than I could have done for myself in 5 years. I'm not stupid, but for 51 years, with all this shit that I've been dealing with how I've been dealing with, it's been fucking a zero, you know, what is it called? Net sum game. I think we have 2 different meanings for that. Anyway, in other words, it doesn't add up. But the thing that I got awoken to, and fuck, in 2020 I put myself to sleep. Whatever being awake now on social media tends to be is like you wake up to the Matrix. I've always lived in the Matrix. I always saw the Matrix. I never fucking got away from the Matrix. 2020, the clarity in that was like, I was like, fuck this. Nobody can see this duality that we're living in, or the cognitive social dissidence that we're all experiencing, and I can't fucking live in that anymore. So I did everything possible to douse myself in just watching constantly movies and fucking porn 6 hours a day, and everything that I can to stop myself from thinking and experiencing how I experienced it on the sort of above physical level, and constantly being either in my head psychologically or spiritually, constant downloading of stuff that didn't make sense within the realm of perspective of 3D world that I was living. Like I wasn't able to fucking understand like how life isn't working out for me when I understand or see behind the veil, or see all like this greater shit that I can't really communicate to anybody, and nobody else can confirm that they see. Until I saw what social media was, and I got exposed myself like a fucking 8-hour day exposure to social media, to start understanding the interconnectedness of people and their sort of subconscious betrayals that you see because the buffer of being one step removed from responsibility and what you could say, and the stuff that you start saying and generating. Every fucking thing that I heard and studied started making sense in the light of what I have concocted in my mind in terms of resolution and reasoning, why fucking like society is so fucked up and why shit isn't working properly. And it was fucking just, I was like done, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, fuck this shit. So I tried, put myself to sleep, then I got into a bitter battle with God about my purpose and existence and what the fuck, and it's all in the head, so you never know if there's the duality is like 2 people arguing inside of you, but it's just, you know, the positive and negative, but it's not really, none of those sources is God. But one of them, the strong argument that it had was the possibility of being able to connect yourself to something supernatural that could solve all this fucking shit in my life. That, okay, I'm 51, but I could still somehow muster up, not fucking, I don't even know. No matter how right or well I do shit, it doesn't work out for me. But the reality is, the being that I am, and all these, where's that fucking thing that I wrote? I'll find it and show it. Just a list of problems that I have, that I experienced, all the symptoms of ADD, social anxiety, panic attacks, and just everything. Just a list of sort of these psychological ailments that I thought that, okay, these are all my problems, probably from traumatizing my brain, my head, from too many accidents, as you know, playing too many sports, or even the amount of drugs and alcohol that I consume that kind of somehow fucked me up permanently, that I'm now sort of disabled and I can't really, you know, put life together like other people. But I have a good chance if I like really focus on this shit, take the right concoction of supplements, and because I can't do meds, like, you know, the side effects is always like too much, like so it's like, okay, I'm gonna go deep dive, study the nutrients, the proper diet, the meditative practices, the, you know, prayers, and all this shit to line myself from bottom up to finally get something to be. And raising 3 kids at, you know, times fully on my own, and having full legal custody and physical custody, you know, you don't have a lot of space to do that. And finally, on the 17th, that broke. You know, my youngest turned 18, and now I'm legally free of all of that. And it's a fucking nightmare to be free at this, in this way, because they don't want to have, you know, anything to do with me. But I'm free. to do whatever the fuck I want. And that should have been and was my approach at the very beginning, is if I have a free will choice of being here, and now the gizmo. On Earth, like I wasn't forced to come here, or whatever role I've played so far, or how I played it, or how I led, learned, was taught to, all sorts of fucking weird shit that I'm opening my eyes to, that I've, how I experienced life. And countering that, and essentially, I did have this philosophy of if it feels good, stay, if it don't, go. But that's basically fundamentally putting emotions above logic, or being emotional. Even you lived logical, so I didn't, like, all my stupid shit never ended up causing me like too much damage, but all my stupid shit was chosen emotionally, out of emotions, not logic. So most of the time, or some of the times, the most important things out of somebody else's emotions regarding my logic, and I couldn't communicate that, and I felt like it was their responsibility, especially being a power figure in my life, like a father and a pastor and friends and everybody else who I asked for help. So you get lost in thinking, well, what the fuck? I keep doing it how other people are doing it and how I'm told to do it, and although it doesn't like really settle right, I'm just kind of a fucked up guy, so that's okay, but it's still not working out. Until I realized that, like, this innate ability to understand it but was taught to go against it is really what fucked it up. And the thing that I was never taught to do is how to get a hold of that gut level, gut brain guidance and feeling to live according in making my bigger decisions, so my life doesn't get so fucked up. So how do you fucking correct that at this age? Where do you start to change? So a few weeks ago, 6 months ago this year, I finally got off my ass and wanted to do that thing that I wanted to do 3 years ago. So I started journaling, writing a book, and my thought pattern and process kind of really started divulging the shit that I, in the past 3 years, really battled with on a paralyzing fucking scale. In literally, before I rearranged this ADU and made it a little bit nicer the past year, but the 2 years before, like, literally locked up in here with my own thoughts and battling God for my rights to exist and for my rights to be able to do whatever the fuck I want when everybody else can. Why the fuck can't I? I don't fucking get it. Why is it that when I choose to do something, shit never works out? Why the fuck is that? Obviously, I never made a clear choice, because every choice I made to do something was a reactionary choice to sort of solve some other thing that I first started doing that wasn't the right thing to do. So it was constant living in a fight or flight reactionary mode for 30 years, and you think that that's life. Like, that's the process of life, and I just, don't have it handled right, and so I'm stuck in it, not able to make anything of it worthwhile, especially to leave as a heritage to my kids. Convincing myself that it's best for them if I fucking stop trying to pursue my family, keeping them in my life and keeping it whole, because it's best for them, because I just end up fucking up anything anyway. So I went for a run yesterday, finally, and I ran before last time. I tried to run, and it literally, I kind of added it up, and it literally, and this is where the rift began. When I was 18, my dad, didn't back my plane. What I really wanted to do is become a pilot in the Air Force. Like, from the time I was 14, like, I was convinced, like, that's the only thing I want to do. Like, and I had it all planned out. I studied hard for it. Even with ADD, I got, like, honors in high school, which was, I was literally failing, almost didn't graduate, and then, somehow I pulled that shit out of my ass, just because, I really thought I had a chance. But everything just constantly, I was in second place for the rest of my life. First loser. First fucking loser all the way through. It was fucking amazing because I was rather talented at shit, I guess, but just was never able to fucking materialize. But I did, you know, at the earlier part, did shit with the style until I got trapped by baby mama narcissists that fucking, I'm reaping the rewards of it in ways that I never expected. And worse yet, just realized in the past few years just how many guys on the planet are kind of suffering the same shit, and all the shit that I've learned in church my entire life, hundreds of churches in many countries, many different understandings, but still all trying to kind of placate and worship a God, but without practicing the principles, which are relatively open but a little bit mysterious and hidden. Practicing shit in the name of love that ends up being like something like hate in the eyes of God because it's principally wrong. And wondering how come nobody's life is not working. How do you set that shit straight? That's this mission. And in that process, I realized certain things that I might be fucking just a little bit more than I expected, and I'm gonna play that fucking role to the max. Still gonna have the same basic framework as I would have, essentially create a little club for myself to help me get to where I need to go, and reward them by giving them 40% of the company that I would build. It's a $100 million company, and I did have a solid idea, and I had this many times before, and I always was able to put like a timeline on it, like a shelf life. Like, okay, like I have an idea and say, okay, I bet you in 6 months I'll see this somewhere in a store or like in society. This was a 5-year shelf life because I knew that within 5 years, whatever idea that I generated then, it was thorough, it was very complete. Like my mind, it's just like very detailed. I can't fucking describe it, but enough to get started that would work for sure. Always with the little room and faith that okay, there's sort of steps and like certain things missing, but by the time I get to it, and if I have the proper help, I know that somebody has that puzzle piece, and it's just me sort of orchestrating that person and finding that person, and sort of that's where sort of the laws of supernatural laws, or what are we calling them now? Let's call them spiritual physics comes into play. As much as there are physical laws that we contend with, basic gravity and E equals mc squared, all that shit is found in one way or another in the spiritual karmic karmic laws. So to study and take advantage of those and properly divide it, as church try to gizmo and make a study of that and actually practice it and have sort of a report and see where that goes. So I have, as of now, this is my probably second or third video, but haven't put any of the shit online. This is just a matter of recording shit because what I'm experiencing and how I'm dealing with shit and what I'm being prophesied, which I can't really grab a hold of that yet because I'm very technical and logical, and that was the whole basis of my experience. Is like my brain is too logical to be saved because I need too much faith and I just can't extend myself, and that was the reason why I didn't even start in 3 years. 6 months it took me to devise the plan thoroughly, and it took me 3 fucking years to talk myself out of it solidly. And by the time I talked myself out of it, I was committing myself to hell and cursing at God and the Holy Spirit out loud at night, being woken up at 3 o'clock like for fucking ever, just being fucking pissed. Like leave me the fuck alone. I ain't doing this shit. Fucking kill me. I'm telling you, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to hell, and I told you, now leave me the fuck alone. Attitude. And I meant it. And that's where this other dimension came in, another way of thinking, and that's where I started thinking in ways that maybe it's brand new. I don't know. When I first started this, not knowing what was on social media, I was crying out, sort of like, I gotta go online there's got to be somebody that understands me, how I see things, that I could align with, to help me explain my situation up until then. Somebody who's lived through so much pain and constantly, that I could believe them, that there was help for me. Because everything else that I read, it's always like, yeah, that's good shit. I know for you it's good, but you don't understand because my shit just a little bit different, and there's always an added little perspective that they didn't have, that negated the efficacy of what they were selling for me. And so I always said, you know what, I'm sure it works for most everybody, but you don't understand me. And again, I'm fairly certain that very few people get a complicated level at the level that I've gotten it. Psychological, emotional level, relatively physically safe. So other than my own choices and pains that I've suffered, I didn't, there's whatever. Yeah. So this is that. This is one of those recordings, and purging and just getting rid of fucking anything and everything that does not line up to where now I want to go and how I want to go is what I'm getting rid of. Like, I've gotten to the point where, like, nothing on this fucking planet matters to me after losing my sons in the way I did, my oldest turning against me in the way I'm experiencing. I'm like, fuck God, like this is too much. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I can't have put so much effort and energy into loving someone and then wanting to literally kill me for fucking no reason, and everybody not, it's just too much. But I'm still here. I still want to know what the max power as a human being that I have on this planet. And that was always the first question, is what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a human being right now in this time on this planet? What the fuck do I actually have access to other than my physical muscles, which is the best I could do, especially if my brain isn't right, which it wasn't, but now it might, it's a little bit right, so I might get 60, maybe $100 an hour. Fuck it, 200. Fuck it, 500. You multiply that and it's still an hourly wage that only gets me so far for next, what, I get a senior citizen discount, like these fucking senior citizen places, because I don't have a house or anything really, 55 and over, and they get like a discount. So I got that. So if the next 5 years don't work out, I'm good, I'm golden, I'm not going to pay a whole lot in rent. I'll fucking work at Home Depot. I've got enough fucking sort of, interpersonal skills and knowledge about fucking building shit that I could, sustain. But wedge between my son. Fuck. It's not my son anymore. Can't. Everybody's fucking gone out of my life. I can't describe how it fucking stops the flow. And it's a fucking nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare to want desperately to have a connection, but you can't, because their being is so fucking negative and turned against you that it stops me in my tracks. My brain stops working. Okay, purging. So recording my purging last night, and again, same shit, like how fuck, like things are moving so super quick in the, let's say, perceived spiritual, which again, give me some fucking proof. I do have some proof. My shoulder got healed one time in church. This really cool fucking experience happened. Like, I really blew it out playing rugby. Like, I had the ball and I was wrapped up. And if I would let it go, I would fucking brace myself. But this arm was wrapped up next to me, and I had the ball. And if in rugby, if you fucking knock it, if it falls out going forward to knock on, and they get the ball, and we were in bad position, so I fucking held on to it. And the guy wrapped me up from behind, and my shoulder dove straight into the ground and fucking just separated it. I couldn't lift it past here for like, I don't even know, 10 years or more. And then this one, I got like a deep tissue massage once, and she did something like really harsh, like a fucking Russian, ugh. And she fucked it up, and both of them got fucked up to the point where my fiance and I lying in bed, and I had my arm under her. I had 15 minutes before it started hurting so much I'd have to move. Then I had about another 15 minutes on the other side before I had to put on myself on my back, because that's the only way I could sleep. Going to work, like I couldn't reach, up more than 90 over here, and this was in pain if I worked overhead. We had a prayer thing, there's a guy, and again, internally I felt like, okay, there's a healing, you have to stand up, you have to claim it, like you have to participate, like you have to. So I did, sheepishly, like a few guys got up when he said somebody with the shoulders hurting, like I felt it, and it's like, that's you, like get up. And I'm like, oh, like dude, like whatever. So somebody got up, and they said, okay, pray for people around you. So, oh, you know what, okay, I'll stand up, I'm up, but I'm going to pretend I'm praying for this other guy here or whatever. But I kind of prayed for myself too, like, okay, so God kind of healed me, but I didn't know it. So I went home Sunday, we had a nap, like midday nap, and like I didn't even really realize that we'd kind of nap like how we always do, like kind of a nice little spooning position, and my arm didn't get tired. And then I flipped, and again, like more than half an hour, and I was, able to like kind of be in that position, and it didn't really hurt. And then the next day, I think within like one day, I fucking realized, like, hang on, I was at work, and wait a minute, like I could actually, like this is like 90%, and this is like 95% like heal. Like there's like a tiny little pain, probably because I didn't fucking, do it full-heartedly. Since then, I fucked it up again in a bad way, but like for 10 years it was perfect. And I experienced that and a few other, let's say, supernatural things, enough to know that whatever power God has, if we inside, if in other words, if we believe that the agent is alive, if we believe that that God file has some strength inside our human bodies, we could convince ourselves for it to heal just on the premise that we believe that God has power. Even if he doesn't really, but just the fact that I believe it inside, it already fucking works. So it's the same thing. If you're told that God has the healing power, and you got this God file and all this shit about him in it, and if you believe it, just because you're the kind of creatures we are, ourselves heal ourselves because we had faith in ourselves to heal. So that's one way of looking at if God exists, right? Because the idea of God heals us if you believe it. But it was another person who told me that this is available for me that day. So the cause, the agent, was released by that cause. He's the one that caused it, right? I'm the effect of it. It happened in my body. And I kind of had proof of that one time. You walk the whole philosophy out and just kind of ascribe a bunch of other things, including raising the dead and some other like really wacky shit, like prophesying, like being able to see what the future brings, right? And that's when I realized, when I got on TikTok, like fucking like to a 95% degree, all the shit that I kept getting inundated with, I already pre-predicted the sort of consecutive next step or the resolution of certain topics and conversations, and why certain things were exhibiting themselves in society the way they were because of how people were behaving, and that's the end result. Like I don't know how to explain it, anything, like especially men and dating, and how we're coupling nowadays, and how society is constructed, and how this thing's still fucking recording, and how cities and history, just drawn through, like imagining an empty earth in Adam and Eve, and then getting them from there to here, and all the fucking shit in between that we stacked, on top of each other time after time to get us here. How We are where we are because of how we stacked it, versus biblically speaking, or karmic physics, or spiritual physics according to spiritual laws, how the ideal resolution, or where we would have been as a society had every human, groups of humans throughout history, stacked it accordingly that way, not constantly had this fucked up way or this evil working in us to fucking do it wrong and then try to get it right and do it fucking more wrong and get it some right and and how to solve that, how to solve it from getting it from here to there. And I started solving it, and then the solutions that started appearing after the 3 years, and this is when the Tate brothers were fucking first surfacing, and this is the Ukraine war was not even happening, and it was like the dating scene was, sort of normal and copacetic. This is right after 2020, 21, August 21, 22 is really when I wanted to launch it. And really, like, my first premise was just intuitively, without having known anything of what's going on really in the fucking social media field, but witnessing it in real life in other people, so it has a very great effect on it in real life, so it's beyond just, an online effect, is, getting pussy off the pedestal. Like, the idea of how women and men line up in the man's role, and how we view women, and how we handle the feminine energy, and sort of the privileges that we give women because of the feminine energy and ladies first kind of mentality, and all this kind of bullshit weaved into now our laws and everything else, and how much the tiny deviation of putting fucking women on a pedestal has led sort of a decrepit level of society, which admittedly, even unless you're the most beautiful women that, certain percent, they even hate it because it's not working out for them, because now you're generating fucking weak ass men, which is everywhere in society. And even if I'm wanting to be a strong and upright man, all my life being relegated to call me names, whatever you want, when I want to do it my way, and having to constantly fucking being told by pastors and leaders that, nope, I'm the one that does it wrong. I'm the one that say, like, give the woman the right of way, and fucking never works out. Bam, I'm the one constantly paying the price where every female is getting sort of ahead, on my dime. That's where, the mechanics of it, the heartbreaks, failures, and lessons, and using all that, and then getting men to fucking just wake the fuck up and understand what our nature is versus what their nature is, and properly aligning shit and seeing what we could produce. That was kind of the aim. My bet was, if God exists, then the principles in the Bible are true. The fact that if we're practicing that shit properly, so now we're going to put principles in place of emotions. So principles first, then fuck feelings. Feelings come second, but beyond anything we feel, we're going to stick to the principle and organize them in the way where we ought to have from sort of day one, and re-raise myself in a way where my dad ought to have raised me, and all those missing pieces and all those fucking wounds and all that shadow work bullshit that everybody has to do, to go back and hug their little younger selves, to give them all the shit that they didn't get. But in perception, if you get it, then now you're going to act like the man you should have had you had that growing up. That's the idea, right? How do you do that? How long does it take? How many steps? What are the processes involved, right? That's the quantum shift. Versus, which was another, literally forget all that shit, like, and I do have this ability to just fucking know. That's not a reference point anymore. Whatever I went through, I'm going to start here and just start building on that. And nothing that ever comes from that affects where I'm going now. Reprogramming my mind as I go at the burnest level that I can to keep my physical activity at 90%, don't overwhelm myself, and just keep retraining my brain to understand things differently, right? On a principle level, and going through those steps, and gratitude, and some of those core elements that now we're seeing everywhere, and all this other shit that in the past 3 years has surfaced, since this, you know, how to, you know, take advantage and align that and properly, and have a few, let's say 1,000 men participate with me, you know, being funded by them to the minimal level. So in other words, that the safety, the core, being physically safe, being provided for, having my rent paid for, having, you know, money to eat is covered while I'm doing this, while I'm selling my story, sharing my wisdom, and then the rest gets added on to it, you know, by this external power source, by God, by me meeting the right people with the right answers at the right time to create this thing, right? And fuck it, I'm not really into money, I never have been, but getting people to participate at 100% level in just a small amounts that you can resonate with me at 100%, to be connected and to feed off that, and to see what accumulative forces we could generate and resolve, you know, doing that with that outline. That's the plan. That was the plan. But now, understanding, there's a second and third project after that one, and it included some really like outlandish, so far fucking outreaching that it really would have been like fucking a goth thing, especially relative to me. Like, I don't think I ever made anything more than like 60 grand a year. Maybe I did, but like filing taxes wise, no. And then like, let's take the last 3 that I fucking work and whatever you want to call it, always been self-sufficient, no healthcare, no 401k, like $500 that I put in 10 years ago, and it still managed to be at $500. Thank God that they keep taking, you know, $15 charge out for managing the shit, but you know, it's still at $500. And a host of other things that my life is essentially like a 21-year-old's, you know. 3 years ago it would have been 18, now it's 21. That's the level of life I'm at 50. So if I have that opportunity to come out at 21 with some sort of education that maybe a college grad would have, and added level of wisdom, that very basic sort of principles that are easily understood if they're properly introduced and digested through a course of a male's human evolution up until the age of 21. It's not that difficult if both mom and dad partner up to properly help a male human child, you know, go through it. Where would that end up? That's the thing now. Seeing where the world is, and even before this whole shit with Iran, I already had this commitment. That's my first video of who I am and what I'm here for. I'm gonna fucking scale it up to a level that's gonna just really, you know. Before I was gonna be a game changer, and I'm a fucking game ender. I know how to usher in the reset. Basically, I know this is. I don't give a fuck. There's not much I could ever prove of how solid my words in my head are, other than live it out loud to see what it actually produces. And I do believe I have that power in me to do what I need to, and then garnish the support to, you know, for the human, the 3D world to survive through the process. But beyond that, you know, if it's a God thing, you're gonna see numbers behind it, right? Because a blessing is a blessing. You don't pray for blessing and then you don't fucking have enough bread to share with everybody in the neighborhood, and you're still praying over molded bread like I was fucking taught in my church. No, if you're blessed, there's fucking 1,000 sheep or cows on a hillside waiting for you somewhere. And that's, you know, basically, you know, not having even one. I have 2 dogs. One of them's a kind of a cow dog, and the other one's like a little rat. Having that as a starting point and ending with 1,000 cows and some hillside, then I could say, okay, God exists. There is the power of God coming through me onto the physical planet, and me being able to generate that shit and being said, yeah, I own this shit, because that's the kind of authority I have on this planet, and if God has the power and it's hidden in sort of these laws and principles, then if I do it right and I'm aligned with Him and I'm asking properly, fantasizing, meditating, feeling it, 100%, whatever you guys want to call it, then it kind of works across the board to some degree, but it works on the level that you are entitled for it to work, because some wrong way, there's like, God says that everybody has some gifts, like, levels of understanding or levels of doing shit, 1, 3, and 10. So we're all we're equally valued by God. We are equally loved, but we are not equally gifted on this planet. To properly understand that and to properly relegate yourself to where you're at so that you could get the help you need, be the help you need, or be the help that you are, and line everybody properly to make this experiment work as best as possible is the goal. And the next reset that we're heading for, I guess I'll get into this later. First, Adam and Eve, sort of perfection, no polarity. Then polarity got introduced, positive and negative, actual living by it. So now you had to work for your food, so you were cursed to stay alive, and you had to kill, for psychological reasons. And then after Noah, you had to kill to actually eat, because you got cursed by meat. So after Noah, after the flood, after the free will roam around, do as you'd like, and everybody did what they want, they didn't have the psychological limitations that after Noah, that's when all the rules and laws started happening, like do this, don't do that, and that's actually when we started having to eat meat. Before then, it was only sort of, we're all vegetarian, right? So now you have to kill to keep living, and it's a curse. And then all the rules and laws that come with that if you, as a planet, or if everybody practices it, then we would have had a good chance at making something of it. But if you don't, then the whole thing starts falling apart, and it turns to shit again. And then it got reset again. This third time, which we're in now, is when the spiritual alignment through the psychological. So when Jesus came, before then, it was like, thou shalt not kill, which is right? Don't kill, don't destroy anybody's other physical, whatever they put their energy to. Don't manipulate them out of theirs, and keep looking up to God to see sort of what's yours and ask Him for help, and don't fuck around with other people's shit, basically. So that's the physical rules. Then Jesus came and said, yep, that's cool, but He says that, I'm telling you, even if you think about murder or thinking about sort of fucking somebody outside of your domain, or somebody else's wife, you're already in the wrong. So in other words, your psychological alignment is already guilty if you're practicing it wrong, because spiritually you're fucking yourself out of alignment. So if you're already thinking like, look, I'm not physically going to sleep with that person's wife, but I'm just going to entertain the thought, well, you're already causing between your psyche and the spiritual connection, you're already causing enough haze that it's not connected properly. So you're not reading the terrain, you're not reading the Holy Spirit in real time to be able to achieve that thing that you really want to build, that is like a supernatural thing. So you already have to have that, sorted out, so that doesn't fuck you up. And that's individuals, and then you extrapolate that society-wide and, multiply it over 2,000 years, and then you get the fucked up environment that we're all suffering under now, right? So then when this gets resettled, by now, we should have had enough sense to practice, okay, we all understand we're not going to hurt and kill other people. That's wrong. We're not going to do that. And we're also not going to manipulate, which we're not understanding that, because that's a fucking karmic law that everybody's sort of breaking and is okay with breaking on one end, especially on the feminine energy end. But, the masculine energy on the physical, we have it sort of dialed in where we know our curse and what we have to do. So when the 1,000-year rule comes, the reign comes back, and it's the fourth reset, then we're gonna be responsible to live according to the karmic laws, like we are responsible to live according to the physical laws that we and our constitution and every other rule book on the planet is sort of written according to, right? So that's gonna be the next thing, and it's all geared up because once we exit our bodies, then our aura, or the fucking thing that we find attuned, is gonna go into another dimension, the fifth, that's different level, where now we're gonna be required to exist within a realm with other energies, but still purely living by karmic laws. So the physical laws are all, done away with, and now we're all adhering to karmic laws and seeing what we could produce in that realm. That's after the fourth level is done with. That's a new game, so to speak. But that's sort of how I see it, And I've always seen it like that. And I fucking see the process of getting from the third to the fourth. But here's the thing. The balance is getting set now. And class action lawsuits are being filed on the karmic level to set this shit right. Because before we head into the fourth round of this game and start playing by new rules again, this shit has to balance out. Because it says that, it's all over the Bible, and I'm sure other places too, that the shit that we're dealing with here, although in the physical generates the consequential psychological karmic deaths, that the curses, the three into the fourth generations, and how all that gets all jumbled up, but essentially that's gotta be not wiped out, but balanced. Your receipts are due, shit like that. And I've been thinking along those terms for even before 3 years ago, before I got on TikTok, but very, very vaguely, and to me it's always been like just fantasy. 3 years ago when I got on TikTok and social media and started, just how much what I considered fantasy about society and way of being and connecting with human beings was actual real in sort of society, it freaked me out. Now I'm getting that same experience, but in the purely spiritual realm. Like, in other words, all this shit that I thought is like, ooh, if I was God, I always thought like this, how and what does free will mean? Like, from his perspective and his interpretation on the planet and the connection, all this shit that we keep hearing, there's a complete total picture that makes sense to me, that has all these different elements already worked out of what we're actually experiencing, but it's really just like a vague story, in the sense that there's nothing that I could ever, no conversation I had with other people or books that I read that describe that. And I'm not very well read. I think I had some few books that I'm getting rid of, but most everything is I read the first 2 chapters and I'm like, okay, I kind of know what this book about. Intuitively, I don't know. It just makes sense. So I fucking put it aside, and all the self-help shit, same thing. Okay, my brain is by the time I read this and process this, I'm going to go more insane than the book's actually going to help. So again, I understand what they're trying to say, but it just, I can't process it the way I guess people process books. So I fucking put it down. So that's how all this other shit. But now I'm getting senses, actual other people, I got onto social media. I honed in, and it started right after I finished. We're still recording. This journal, I don't know if that picks it up. Just me trying to fucking make sense of my shit, and then we look at our daily gratitude. We got, I think, 10 years later, and then this really made us, we're gonna fix this shit now, because being thankful, and keep listing the thankfulness, and that's gonna solve shit. And then, put it down again, pick it up again. And then I picked it up, I think, February of this year. empowered through my thoughts on everything, and how I was led to write, and the flow of everything and what it produced. And I reread it because I didn't really read it. I was like, oh fuck, cool. And then as soon as the leftist curveballs that I've ever fucking never thought I would experience in life, from my son and everything else, and my mom passed 3 years ago, or 4, and some of the things that were revealed and how everything else lined up. And then I got back online trying to fucking see how I could publish this thing and see what value it has, because it just, you have that idea like, okay, this is kind of a fucked up kind of thing that I wrote, but I think it has value to some other people, especially if what I wrote is true. But the only way to test it is publish it. So I got on YouTube, and quite literally Chosen Ones is like the video that I popped up, and there's obviously the algorithm starts presenting different channels and different sort of people along the same way. But you know, understanding prophecy enough from my time in church, and I'll qualify this now. It was a good, solid church. Let's say Holy Spirit filled, and a good attempt at trying to, you know, intensive 30-day program where we fast from entertainment and TV and everything. So we really get into this. Then it turns into like 6 weeks, and there's 4 levels of it, and it's really intense because 6 weeks of you know, and then this is because I finished in, you know, all of it. And for some reason, if I did it back to back in 1 year, so I was in this headspace, completely void and fasting of society and media, and I think that's when the healing happened, and certain other things with my fiance when I met certain markers I kept putting away in my life, including this verse that popped into my head in November 2011, right before I had no reason to even have that, but it said, when you return to me, I will, you know, give you kids and houses, or something like that, like some verse like that. I'm like, what? I'm about to get engaged to fucking the perfect solution to my life. Like I never thought after the hell I lived, I have a chance at true love, and my 3 boys love her, and she fit into the picture better than anybody, including their mom, ever did. And she was very feminine energy, very loving and everything. You know, we'll get into that later. And another thing is like, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And it just popped in and landed and just never left. I'm like, why does that pop out when you're doing homework and reading and everything is copacetic, and you know, this love of your life is just coming into your life and all this. And this, obviously, that shit fell apart too about 5 years ago. But those markers and a few other markers that had some kind of an impact, where it just like, I didn't need that to land into me or into my brain, or have it bold type written, you know, at a time where I was dealing with the Bible a lot and reading and doing, you know, homework and praying, and, you know, just really trying to understand what a spiritual walk is on this planet. And what does those mean? And then I'm like, okay. And here's my basic philosophy. Like, up until then, everything I read, I interpreted the language written in English with the definitions that I learned that they are. But it wasn't until recent, like, okay, hang on. Like, I hear this because I'm attuned to understanding, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. But, like, by whose definition of curse? Is it mine or his? So, in other words, what he says, promises, right? Like these cosmic or karmic energy, and the sort of promises that come with them. Like, in other words, there's a bunch in the Bible. If you fucking live this way, if you keep these principles, these karmic laws, then you could expect this in your life. Like, that's the story, basically, right? But what this is according to his definition, like, what blessing is like, I thought, oh, blessing, oh, that's great. So I have like 2 houses that are and a car. Like, that's great. Like, wow, fucking, you mean I'll have like $1 million? But his blessing is different, because by his definition, if you think of who God is and how infinite and what we mean to him and the planet and what he has control over, and then you get into the quantum realm, and like to really think about, like, you know, even how we were created. Because again, another problem I solved is like, okay, what happened? And God said, and then everything appeared, and then superstring theory, fuck, same shit. All I did is read 2 paragraphs on that shit before I aligned it in a way where I heard conversations start aligning about it, you know, decades later, explaining it the way my mind sort of concocted. Anyway, you put all that shit together, and then you start fucking flipping it a little bit, like, hang on, like, how much of what I'm reading I'm misdefining because I'm not opening up to his level of defining. And so my first video, I opened up my mouth. Like, he says, open up your mouth and I'll fill it. Okay, well, me opening my mouth is like me yelling this much, maybe a little bit louder, with, I own this property and house. Okay, well, fuck, alright, I'll fill it, because that's what you open up. Versus, I own this fucking planet because the chapter of the Bible says I fucking do. And because there's a vacancy, and because I believe in certain things like the 4th dimension and the psychological realm, and nobody owns that shit, then I can fucking go and claim that I'm the fucking king of it. And I did, and I do, and I 100% believe that. And I'm gonna fucking exercise it and see where that leads. Because if I open my mouth and he knows that there's a void, and I am a prophet that I am, because I've always been able to foresee everything to the level I have. I haven't proved it to him because nobody's fucking willing to listen, but that does not make me a non-prophet. But if I am a prophet, then I can prophesize my own kingdom, anoint myself as a king, and as a king, fucking play the role of a general to fucking go out and own that shit, because I've been anointed by Jesus Christ, who is my counselor, in other words, in his court of law, representing me according to my interest in what I control on this fucking planet. And that is the direction I'm heading in. Question is, who's with me? Nobody has to be. But if I'm a king, I have a kingdom. There's gonna be proofs and people. And the way I'm gonna set it up, it's very simple. You don't have to believe a word I fucking say. Matter of fact, don't. Because I can't deal with people who are at least in a sliver of whatever perspective that they have that aligns with what I'm saying is not aligned 100%. Pick a sliver, pick a topic, pick a thing that at some point in my journey with you, you are convinced that, yeah, I agree 100% in that one thing, and I will support him only in that. That's cool. That gives you access to anything and everything else that I'm about to claim and practice and see where that lands us. But ultimately, my sort of, again, doing my fucking foresight shit that I've always done, if I exponentiate into the future, then I am the fucking game ender. Clean the slate, close the shit down so the new can begin. And here's the kicker. It's us who have always relegated what society is. It's the only and the best gift that we could offer God from human's perspective to his admiration, to worship him. Okay, humans, throughout all this timelines and dimensions and all these variables that we keep constantly imagining, and you could take any snapshot of a picture in time and add it all together, freeze it and expand it. What have you created that God is like, wow, that's fucking cool? It's society. It's relatability. It's how our auras shine as individuals to the best degree, playing our own harmony in a collective, call it a snow globe, that each individual fucking little pixel is this elaborate, expanded throughout time orchestration of aura dancing in conjunction with every other aura that ever existed and was fine-tuned to perform this fucking visual feed through space and time. I don't know, that's how I kind of see the exponential version of it. Obviously, being here on the physical planet and Earth, to exercise our abilities and fine-tuning our auras and what he sees in the image that he created within us of him, you know, like an x-ray image or like an energy field image or whatever else you want to call it, other than the fucking physical 5-finger limited to this space image, right? And how he perceives that. But at the end of the day, my guess is that is the best sort of production. That is the Christ body, where every aura is a cell in the story that lives and dies, and what that whole body does. Maybe I'm going too far. Yeah. Can you dig it? Let's get into it.